neuroscientist Heather Berlin. Heather, come on out. Hey. So Heather, is your show.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, Neil, you can take a back seat and
I don't think so.
You don't know me very well, Brian. You don't know me very well. Welcome to Star Talk All Stars at BAM. I'm your host, Heather Berlin. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. I'm based here in New York at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. So Neil, Brian, thanks for being my guests tonight. And we're gonna...
And Chuck, forget about you.
Yeah. You're just ingrained in my mind. We've become one. We've become Chuck, my co-host, for bringing all of the wonderful scientific insights and comic relief. Thank you for being here.
So wonderful of you to study.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the intersection between neuroscience and physics. Talk a little bit about consciousness, time, and free will. So we're just going to keep it light. Light and easy.
Free will.
Yeah. So
Not Free Willy. Right. Free will.
it's not that kind of show. We are gonna.
That was a movie.
I took that reference differently.
That was a movie.
You know what's funny? I was thinking that. And I was like, nah, I better not say it.
I told you we are one. You're like my subconscious that I just kind of try to keep at bay, but it keeps coming up.
That's a very good plan, actually.
Yes. So actually, Brian, you once tweeted. You said, "Free will is this."
Wait, you're going to quote a tweet of
I
mine
am quoting
in
a
front of this
tweet.
guy over here? That's like saying I play baseball in front of Babe Ruth, right? It's like saying I write music in front of Mozart, right? All right, go ahead.
Your tweets matter. Your tweets matter.
Thank you.
Free will.
All tweets matter. Yeah.
Not all tweets. Not all tweets.
Blue tweets matter. I
We
had
got
to
some
do it.
red
I'm sorry.
tweets in the
I'm
house.
sorry.
We got some red tweets in the house. Okay, so you said free will is the sensation of making a choice. The sensation is real, but the choice seems illusory. Laws of physics determine the future. So
I had to say that.
you were compelled. It was determined from the Big Bang. What does physics have to say about free will?
Well, it's not definite because we don't fully know the laws of physics, but the laws of physics that we currently have at our disposal have no opportunity for intercession by human will, right? I mean, we are a collection of particles governed by laws that you can write down and fit on a t-shirt, and those laws don't at any point in the evolution of the particles say, hey, can you tell me now what to do, person? Mm-hmm. They just determine the future based upon what things were like in the past.
But Brian, can't there be an emergent property of that collection of molecules that we can call free will? Just because the emergent property, if you know emergence, it's a feature of an ensemble that cannot be deduced by the study of the individual.
Like ants.
Like ants. You study one ant, you say, hi, ant, you'll shake your hand, you have no idea that 1,000 ants together are going to make an ant mound.
Right.
Or 1,000 termites make a termite mound.
Right.
Or that birds will flock. You have no way to predict
the idea
that.
is
That one ant sounds like Woody Allen.
If free will doesn't
Forget
exist at the level of physics, in other words, if it doesn't exist at the level of physics, could it not exist at the level of biology or, say, psychology?
That's right. So it's a very good point, and it really depends on what your definition of free will is, right? Normally, the intuitive definition is things could have been different, and I could have made a choice for things to turn out differently. And if that's your definition of free will, does that resonate with your perspective of free will? Then I don't see any way to square that with the laws of physics, because anything that you do is your particles executing some kind of motion, and the motion of your particles in your brain and your body have no opportunity to allow you as a conscious being to direct them. What force could possibly that direction come from? Is it the electromagnetic force? Well, that one we understand from Maxwell. Is it the gravitational force? We understand that one from Einstein. Is it the nuclear forces? Those we understand from the standard model of particle physics. What force could you possibly exert on your particles that goes against or goes beyond those that emerge from the equations of physics? That's the issue.
Could our free will thrive in the probabilistic description of quantum physics?
No. Not as we currently understand it. And that's a natural
Don't
place.
make me fight you here on the stage.
Well, we've done this before.
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, I grabbed his lapel on stage once.
But we both were wrestlers in high school. Different weight categories.
Yeah, very different weight category.
So it's I should have said it's possible, but I consider it highly unlikely. So there is a puzzle right now in quantum physics that has been on the table for 50, 75 years, and we don't know the answer to this puzzle. And that's why I have to couch my remarks with a little bit of uncertainty. And that puzzle is this. Quantum theory says that you can only predict the probability of one outcome or another, right? 50% chance electron here, 50% chance there. Yet when we measure the electron, we always find it either here or there, right? One or the other. So how do you go from the fuzzy probabilistic haze of many possibilities to the single definite reality that we all experience in everyday life? We still don't know how to bridge that gap. So within that, if consciousness somehow plays a role in picking out one outcome from the probabilistic haze, then sure, then free will might come for the ride as well.
There you go. You just said probabilistically, the particle can be here or there.
Yes.
But if you measure it, it is only in one place.
Yes.
So my act of thought is I want a cheeseburger. That's the particle in this state. And I'm going to say, I want a cheeseburger. Bam! The particle's there.
Wait,
that's the part I don't buy right there. You see, because...
Why are you poking your...
Because it's random. There's nothing that you did to pick one outcome because you wanted it, because you willed it, because it was your desire. And yet your intuition is you had the cheeseburger because you chose it. If it comes from a random process, it's like throwing the dice. And throwing the dice to get an outcome is not what we mean by free will.
Okay, wait. You physicists.
Sorry.
I'm going to give you a neuroscientific perspective.
Oh, good.
Okay. So from a neuroscientific perspective, first of all, what's happening at the quantum level doesn't really scale up to whether a neuron fires or not, right? I mean, that indeterminacy. But from experiments that we've done, starting in the 80s, Benjamin Libet did studies where he said to somebody, whenever you feel like it, just press this button. And he measured brain activation. And he found, and he said, even before they actually press the button, because that takes time to make the movement, just let me know where this little dot is on the clock when you feel the first inkling of the intention of wanting to move. And then what he found is about 350 milliseconds before a person even had that conscious intention, there was a gearing up of brain activation, right? So then, leap forward to current times, we do neuroimaging experiments where we can say to a person...
Just so people know,
Yeah.
you measure people's brains for a living.
That's my job. That's what I do, yes.
Okay.
I would be no help to you.
It's my unconscious here again. He's always butting in and, we need you. But you can measure it using fMRI, which looks at blood flow to different parts of the brain.
Functional
magnetic resonance imaging. Basically, looking at blood flow as a proxy to neurons fire. The blood is going to go where the neurons are firing because they need energy. So we can say to you, okay, just choose left or right, or that hamburger or not. And
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger, sorry, that's a cheeseburger.
He chose to put cheese on that burger.
We can predict up to 10 seconds before you even have the conscious inclination of your intention, which you're going to go, left or right, or cheese or no cheese, right? So at that level, I like to say, yeah, sure, we have free will, but we're just not conscious of it, right? The brain is making these decisions all the time, and we have this illusion of free will. But the question really is why do we have this illusion? Why did we evolve this illusion? Is it important? If we didn't have it, would it change our behavior?
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that it gives us that sense of control that presumably out in the savannah, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, made the difference between surviving and not. If you're invested in how things turn out and feel that your decisions can affect how things turn out, you're more attentive, you're more engaged. It's something that matters to you more, and presumably something like that or some parallel story like that suggests why we have this illusion.
So you're less likely to be eaten.
Yes, that's the
Right.
point. That's the point.
Well, so you both agree with one another, with each other, that from physics point of view, it's deterministic. You didn't use that word, but I'm putting it in your mouth.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay on the radio and live show, but
Wait, so
Yeah.
Heather, so your results are consistent with his, basically.
Yeah. I think from both a physics perspective and a neuroscience perspective, we come to the similar conclusion that it's an illusion, that free will is an illusion, even though we really feel like it's not. And actually, studies have been done, which when you tell people that free will is an illusion, and you start giving them subsequent tests, they're more likely to cheat on a math test. They're more likely to act unethically. So the fact that we have this belief, those who have had it actually are better able to survive in the system along the line.
We're more likely to behave.
We're more
we
likely
think
to
we're in
behave.
control.
However, we also have evolved for there to be cheaters, right? And they can win. And so if we were all cheaters, no one would win. But if we all...
Just ask Tom Brady.
And Chuck, he looked so deflated at the end of that game, right? He was sad. Yeah. So, Heather, is there let me ask you a blunter question.
Right.
Does it even matter that you know this, if we all feel like we have free will? I want to believe that I go to school and get a good job and behave, and I want to believe all that.
Well,
And you tell me I shouldn't believe it? That if one day I end up in prison, that was predetermined from the Big Bang?
And wait, just as
You're saying yes to that?
but wait,
Absolutely,
as an addendum to that, as an addendum to
if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. There's nothing I can do to
So if I kick your ass right now,
That's it.
that was predetermined
Then it was meant to be.
from the Big Bang.
It was meant to be, my friend.
I don't know how this got so sexy.
Plus, Brian, kicking one's ass is not a literal stick your ass in someone to kick.
Well,
But wait,
From the hood, it means just winning a fight.
Oh.
But that
Actually,
predeterminism.
Brian was born and raised in New York City. So went to Stuyvesant High School. So he's homegrown.
Oh, nice.
Homegrown.
But wait, that predeterminism that you were just talking about. Okay, let's say, for instance, that you do accept that, and then that leads to fatalism. Was that also predetermined? So the fact that you were given this information that, well, I'm not really in charge of my own decisions. My brain is making these decisions based upon these neurosynaptic transitions that happen within my mind. And so I just let that happen. And then I say, okay, because of that, I don't give a damn about anything. And I just let it all go. Was that predetermined?
Yep.
well,
Well,
let
there
me,
you
about
but
it.
also to put it in perspective.
Sorry,
Well,
man.
okay. God, I'm going to shoot myself tonight.
But you
Wait,
see,
I gotta just let the record show. Chuck put out a really awesome question right there, and it just got a one-word answer. You could have at least stretched out your answer. Give a guy a break.
No,
you know?
happy to. So often people, when they encounter these ideas, and you must have heard this too, people say, okay, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit on my couch, and what does it matter?
Fatalism.
Right? But you see, that's a mixing of two distinct views on one question. You see, if you think that you're making a free choice to sit on your couch, then you feel like, well, now I am going to give in to this, and I'm just going to sit there. But if you do that, it was determined. So exactly what you're asking. If you choose to sit on your couch, it's not that you made a volitional choice. It was set in place. And if that's what was going to happen, that's what's going to happen.
So, but then by that particular measure, all information that we receive then predetermines everything that we do. That's really what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. And moreover, but to just give this a little bit more color, I think your view, Heather's view, and Baba's
Don't
view.
mansplain her view.
Okay, I won't that. But what I heard Baba say.
Now let me tell you something, Brian. Let me tell you something. I predetermined to say that.
We spoke about this before we came out. But Baba's description, I think, really at least helps me when I think in those terms, which is it's not that free will is the intuitive one that we're talking about here. Free will really is the fact that we're able to carry out this amazing spectrum of behaviors. We can walk, we can talk, we can sing, we can come up with ideas. The fact that they had an earlier cause, maybe even back at the Big Bang, to me it doesn't take anything away from creativity. It doesn't take anything away from originality. It doesn't take anything away from having a sense of authorship over your own actions, because you're the most immediate cause of those actions. They emerge through you, through your particles. Your particles in your brain are configured in such a way that when certain stimuli hit your body, you said and do certain things. The fact that it's determined, who cares?
So there's different views of free will. Okay, there's not just determinism and non-determinism. There's compatibilism,
which is what that is.
Yeah. And compatibilism is saying that the world it is deterministic, but we also have free will within that because of these probabilities. And the other question, getting kind of to what you were saying, is that so then people throw their hands in the air. Okay, if there's no such thing as free will, then I can do whatever I want. I can go murder someone. It doesn't matter. It was predetermined. However, we have also
However, Chuck.
evolved. There is a
there.
however. That's really important. We have evolved the capacity to have self-control as other animals. But in particular, we have the largest percentage of prefrontal cortex than any other species, which is the part of the brain that has that ability to control our innate impulses. So we hold people accountable for their actions to the degree to which they have the capacity to have self-control. Therefore, children are less responsible for their crimes than adults, or people who have prefrontal lesions or severe psychiatric illness. So
Because children don't have a fully developed
prefrontal cortex
yet.
until about the age of 25.
And
So
for guys, it's 35.
yeah, it's a little bit, push it out a little bit more.
Or perhaps 70.
Let me ask both of you something, because you both have to think about this. Since we're talking about the brain predetermining something you do, you're talking about the Big Bang predetermining all future events, then is the fact that we experience time, is that itself an illusion?
I'm going to say yes, time is an illusion the way we experience it. Now, I'm not talking from the physics perspective, right? But the way humans experience time is an illusion because it's very easily manipulated. So for example, in experiments, we can take something called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is basically transcranial magnetic stimulation. You put a magnet and you can kind of zap different parts of the brain and temporarily knock them out.
People let you do this to them?
We do all sorts of things, Neil. Why do you think I became a neuroscientist?
I got to be honest, I'm kind of up for it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's just that, Heather, you describe it with such glee. Stick a magnet on their head. Okay, and what happens?
One day I'll bring you into the lab, Neil. It'll be a lot of fun.
I have magnets in my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can manipulate. For example, we have you do an action. Like you can press the button whenever you want. Kind of like that. Let me know when you had the intention to do it, and then we see when you do it. And then we zap you just after you do it.
Zap you.
Little magnet stimulation, and then what that does,
it's innocent.
Harmless. It's harmless.
Magnetic stimulation of the brain.
Absolutely harmless. Yeah. And what it does is we can move back in time your perception of when you had the intention. We can move forward in time your perception of when you did the action. Okay, so that's one way we can manipulate time. You can manipulate time when you're in various different states of consciousness. When you have particular types of brain damage, especially to the prefrontal cortex, your perception of time will speed up. We're starting to understand what parts of the brain are related to time perception, and when they're damaged, your time perception changes, or when you have certain psychiatric illnesses. Even during the creative state, when you're in that kind of flow state, like when Baba gets into his flow and he's rapping, I've looked at his brain in the scanner and other rappers.
He let you do this.
Why do you think I married him? Oh, he's my husband, by the way. Full disclosure.
Wait, did he know before he married you that
No, she made him marry her. They were out at dinner. She was like, come here, I'm going to put a magnet on you. put him.
The real question is,
Don't try to dodge this fact. We know. All right.
the real question is, did he write a rap about neuroscience because he married a neuroscientist, or did he marry a neuroscientist because he wanted to write a rap about neuroscience? We'll never know.
Now listen.
I digress.
Now I'm gonna tell you what I know, and no disrespect to Baba or my wife of 20 years, but he married you because you're hot. Now that's one thing that every man is predetermined.
He tells me he was more attracted to my brain, but I'll leave it at that.
And I'm gonna tell you, he's lying.
So anyway, as I was saying, I put it in the scanner. Yes.
You put him in the scanner while he's rapping.
While he's rapping, and we actually found a distinct pattern of brain activation where he, during the improvised state versus when he's doing a memorized rap, he gets decreased activation of the part of the brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which has to do with our sense of self and time and place. So when you're in these flow
There's
states,
actually a part of the brain called the dorsolateral
Right, it's like-
prefrontal.
right.
Could you make up your mind where this thing is in the head?
I'm kind of with you because it's like dorsal, lateral, prefrontal. Right. It's just like, so exactly where is it? It's all around here. It's like all up in here.
In this exact spot.
It's right there.
Well, you know,
Okay, I'm
there
sorry.
are a
I
lot
just
of
couldn't.
parts to the brain that we need to describe in
Okay.
exquisite detail. I won't even ask you about your physics terms that you all use. So it's turned down, right? And then, so that's why when people are in this flow state, it feels as if it's coming through them from someplace else because they lose their sense of agency. But they also lose their sense of time. And we also know in people, if you knock out with transcranial magnetic stimulation that part of the brain, it'll affect their perception of time. So time is a creation of the brain. It's an illusion, just like anything else. And the other interesting fact is that people without any brain damage, just healthy people, actually have a slower subjective sense of time than the actual clock time. So we're not very accurate at telling clock time. So we have our own kind of internal pace.
When I was a kid, I did a really geeky thing just because I could. I trained myself to count seconds precisely. And
Oh. What are you talking about, Neil? That's not geeky at all.
And my personal best was I counted 89 seconds when 90 seconds had passed. And I used to do it with stopwatches. I almost got an applause for that thing. One other, and so Brian, I just try to match real time.
Yeah.
But she's saying it's like the brain can be manipulated to think about.
Is there such thing as real time? I just think it's an illusion that we experience, but is there actual real time?
From the standpoint of physics, there is a conception of time because that's what allows change to occur. So when people say from a physics standpoint that time is an illusion, I don't really know what they mean. But it is the case that our experience of time, which you say that you can manipulate, which is quite interesting.
With magnets.
Yeah, exactly. Our
Or
experience
electrodes.
of time does not give us insight into the way time actually works. Because once you learn that time for me is not the same as time for you, if we're in motion or if we're experiencing different gravitational fields, these are measurable differences between how your watch and my watch will tick off time based upon what we're doing and where we are. That's counterintuitive. We've never experienced that. It took a genius of Einstein to come along and reveal it. So I would say that our experience of time gives us a misrepresentation of how time actually behaves. But time is real.
But for every one of us, we are prisoners of the present, eternally transitioning from our past to our future.
Jesus.
Man.
That's
Dang.
deep, man.
Man, shoot.
Maybe we should just end the show right
Exactly.
there, man.
Like, you said that, I was like, I guess we out of time.
There's actually, looking into the future, there might be ways that we can do things now, like implant electrodes in the brain, right, and stimulate certain parts
The more
directly.
you talk about this,
Well,
we can plant electrodes in the brain because the magnet wasn't good enough.
And to boot, we can control it with remote control. This is real stuff. I promise. Wait, Neil.
How do we know, Baba, you weren't just off stage controlling Baba like
You
this
know.
with a remote control? How do we know?
Why do you think he was so good?
Dang.
But if we could, and theoretically we could do this in the not too distant future, go in and implant electrode and affect your perception of time such that every moment appears to last an eternity.
Depends on which the moments are, man.
Well, you can fast forward the ones you don't like. You can keep the really
Wait,
good
that
ones.
was in Black Mirror. I saw that in
Was
Black
it?
Mirror. Yeah.
I was going to
Big
say,
up
have
for
you
me.
been talking to my
Big up
wife?
But the question would be, would you want that implant? Would you want that? Because I happen to think that, having to experience both the good and the bad, but the fact that it's temporal and that there's this limit and that it's our most valuable resource gives life meaning.
But suppose you could find the moments in time or the places in the brain where you're most creative, and then make that be your most sustained experience.
Well,
does creativity map into this conversation?
Yes, when you're creating, the parts of your brain that are normally active when they're clicking off time are down-regulated when you're in that creative flow state. So time doesn't seem to exist. Self doesn't seem to exist. It's a very pleasurable state. People strive to get there.
I bet Brian and I could agree on this. When you're cranking out some equation, you forego personal hygiene. You don't know that you're hungry. You don't know and you don't know how much time has elapsed.
And you almost
Brian,
feel
do you
like
agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I call that Sunday.
Yeah.
But you also it feels as if you're tapping into something greater, as if you are outside something greater than yourself, because your sense of self is turned down. So in those moments, I would argue that we feel eternal in a sense, because time is not existing. And it is very pleasurable. But do you want to be in that state all the time?
Well, if I
I
had
think it would be
control over
meaningless.
it, do I have control over it?
If you had control, yeah, you potentially.
Yeah, if I
we
had
can
control
give
of
you
it.
Yeah,
control.
she wasn't very sure about that part.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Do you have
focus right
control? All I know is this: I am never coming to your lab because you like a real life version of Get Out. Lay me down on the table and just now sink it to the floor.
Well, I welcome any of you
No,
into my
no,
lab
no.
at any time.
Chuck and I
It's
are walking
an
right by.
open door policy. Come on in. But yeah, so anyway, I would argue that our sense of time is what gives us meaning. And there are some patients who get lesions where they are just literally living in the moment. They cannot see the future and they cannot think of the past. There's someone who has a certain type of
So
brain
the
damage.
prisoners of the present without vision.
Right, see, because you say we're prisoners of the present. I say we're not prisoners of the present because we can see into the future and the past. There are true people who, there's a man, he had a certain type of brain damage where every minute he keeps a diary and he just keeps writing, I am now just conscious for the very first time. Right now I'm just conscious for the first time. Now I'm just awake the first time. And it's just each minute because he has no vision. He can't look in the future and he can't see the past. It's only the now. He's a
Which
prisoner.
magnet made that happen?
No, that was the type of brain damage that we
And
don't
can I
want.
borrow some money from him?
Chuck!
Wait, one interesting thing of that story, though, just to give it meaning, he had damage to his hippocampus, which is involved in memory. But the one thing he did remember.
There was an
that remained-
episode of Family Guy called Big Man on the Hippocampus, by the way.
Really? I've never
Yeah.
seen it. Well, the thing that stayed
I know because
constant.
I was in that episode. That's
You-
why. Yeah.
You were the big
Or it's
man?
referenced in it or something.
You were the big man on the hippocampus?
No.
Oh, no,
I was
wasn't you?
just, yeah. Go on.
The thing that remained stable, though, is every time his wife would come to visit him, and this was over the course of years, he would recognize her and see her like it's the first time he's seeing her in a million years and say, oh, it's so good to see you. I'm so happy to see you, whatever. And that lasted for years and years, and that was the only thing that remained constant. And the other thing was that he was a professional pianist, and whenever he'd get in front of the piano and get into this mode, he could actually just play a whole piece.
Now,
And
was
those are
he
the two
aware?
things.
Was he aware that his wife was putting magnets on his head?
If only. But the one thing is this: we control the electrodes right now. The question is, can you control them yourself?
Yeah.
That's why I hesitate. We haven't got to that point yet because you don't want people going home
call
and
me
just
when you get there,
zinging
you know,
themselves, But
Yeah.
when we get to that point, then
Yeah.
I'll give you a
Yeah.
call.
And so, Heather, we're about to lose Brian. out of
no.
this segment before
Forever?
we go to our sports segment.
Forever, she
About to lose
says.
Brian.
So, Brian, do you have any sort of concluding reflective thoughts?
No.
And he freely said that.
So, Brian, I like, what was it, Einstein or John Wheeler, who said of time, time is invented to make motion look simple.
I hear Wheeler said time was invented so that everything doesn't happen at the same moment.
Oh. You can spread it out in that coordinate system.
And Einstein said that the distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent. And on that, I'll leave. Thank you very much.
Brian.
Thank you.
Brian Greene, everybody.
Great job.